Hello.
Hey, let me just adjust my camera. Let's see if I can do this. Oh, I think we're good.
Okay.
You can
Just a
see me
moment.
okay?
Yes, I see you well.
How are you?
Uh, Sorry, did we freeze?
Yeah, I think we froze for
Are
a
you there? Okay.
second. I'm here.
Me too. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. How's LA?
Good. It is a heat wave, but it is good.
Hey, I live in Vegas. It's always a heat wave, you
Oh
know?
no. I don't envy that part of Vegas.
It's almost over. It's almost
Okay,
over.
good.
September's about to clear everything
Uh,
up. Hopefully.
that makes all the difference, right? Hopefully you won't continue in the heat wave that we continue into October.
Well, Maine.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to join us. And I know that many in our audience know you already, but before we begin, do you want to take a quick second to reintroduce yourself to the Yesh Tikva community?
Hi, everyone. My name is Eli Weinstein. I'm a therapist in Vegas, licensed in Nevada and in New York. Also do coaching throughout the country. Actually, secret news, I'm in the beginning stages of writing a book coming out at the end of next year,
Amazing.
early end of 2025, early 2026. So that's an exciting new add to the craziness of the things that I'm doing.
That
Um,
is
and
awesome. And we will keep an eye out for it.
yeah, and I have two kids through IVF. My wife named Ariella. We married for about 9 years. And I'm really excited to be here because it's something that I'm very passionate about, something that started my journey to understanding the reality of fertility struggles by having my own, not realizing and knowing. And it was because of the Yesh Tikva Shabbos out in Washington Heights that kind of opened our eyes, my wife and I's eyes, to the reality that it could be something that we were struggling with and we had no idea. So I appreciate you guys very much. So I'm really happy and excited to be here.
Thank you. And thank you so much for making the time to speak with us
Of
today. I
course.
know that this is a really heavy topic, and in light of everything going on in the world right now, even heavier. And we're focusing, I think, more on the individual loss experience of infertility, more so than the communal loss experience that men experience in general.
Mhm.
But I guess we'll start very basic of in your professional opinion, is there a difference between how men process loss versus how women process loss?
Yeah, I think they do. And if we're going to bring it to the fertility state of it, I think just the reality of who can carry the baby
Mhm.
changes the reality of, I guess, maybe the difference of intensity or even the perception and how that then impacts the reality of how we deal with that grief and that loss, right? I always make this kind of joke or even seriousness, depending on the scenario, of when even a baby is born, it still is a different experience of processing because the woman has had so many months of that experience of connection, of kicking and all those things, even more so that disconnect and that feeling of emptiness when that isn't there. And I think the hard thing for a lot of men is the idea that they can't do anything about it. There's a lot out of the man's control. The
Mhm.
women are getting the shots. The women are getting all the pills. The women are going to the doctor's appointments and all those kind of things really focus on the women, which is a huge burden of responsibility and something that men
Sure.
and myself will never understand.
Sure.
But even more so, it makes it that much more removed where it feels like very lonely in the fact that they sit there and they're like, okay, well, I guess we'll try again. But like, you're really doing all the work and I'm just sitting here. It can be a very weird experience of disconnect that can be very hard for a lot of men when it comes to that loss and grief.
For sure. And that makes a lot of sense. And that definitely there is that piece of ownership that a woman gets to take along on this journey when it's physically happening to their body. And I'm wondering if there's a difference when there is a male factor component added to it, and surgery or other pieces, hormone injections and whatnot are added in, if that changes the dynamic in terms of
Yeah,
its experience.
I remember when I was hinting to with the Yesh Tikva Shabbos that happened many years ago in Washington Heights and Schenck. I was sitting there and there were four couples, and three out of the four couples was male infertility. And I was so uneducated and unaware. And I said to myself, that's impossible. This is not a men's issue. This is a woman's issue. Well, this is ridiculous. And that Shabbaton, that Shabbos, that experience kind of really opened my eyes that it's a person issue, depending on the scenario and depending on the structure and what issues there are. And I think that when the issue falls on a person,
Mhm.
right? I think statistically, I don't know if the numbers have changed, but like a third, a third, a third is kind of the classic breakdown
Right.
of a third being the issue male, third being the issue female, and third unknown. And when it does fall on one partner, it feels very heavy that it's their fault. And that can really create such a weight of responsibility as well as this guilt that it's all on me and it just I'm at fault for everything. And it can be very, very a big struggle to push through when things don't work and don't go as expected, hoped, or planned or dreamed of. Then that weight gets even stronger, heavier, and pulls you even deeper down into that rabbit hole of pain and suffering.
Definitely. And that makes a lot of sense. How would you, what advice would you give to a man who is processing this and looking for tools to cope through that feeling of this is my fault and I don't even know what to do right now?
The biggest thing that I would suggest is you need to talk to somebody.
For sure.
It doesn't matter, of course. Please reach out to Yesh Tikva. Of course, they have the resources and hopefully the help and that the beautiful connections that they might have that you have. But even more so, if they're not fitting the right markers that you're hoping for, having a friend, having a parent, and even a therapist. I don't care what letters are after their name. Make sure they're professional and do a good job and they care for you, because having that all bottled up. And there was a research study done about a couple of years ago, that the difference between men and women when it comes to expression of feelings,
Mm-hmm.
women are more inclined to have things like a hamster wheel ready to go to talk and be more expressive. And men are usually something called a bottler,
Mm-hmm.
which is where, of course, we're going very general and stereotypical here for a second, is more bottling. And bottling, all that does is it leaks into every part of your body
Mm-hmm.
and your system and your anxiety and your stomach and your head and your stress and your hair loss and everything that is the struggle of holding on to pain. And it needs to come out and you need to find it. And it could be that going for a walk, it could be going to the gym, it could be learning with your favorite person, having a chavrusa, it could be davening, it could be, doesn't even have to be Judaic, it could be something secular like reading a good book or talking to a therapist and having a place that is safe and comfortable. You owe it to yourself because to be a better partner, you need to work on yourself and be a better you. And you being down the dumps for good reason and you being in a low place for very real things doesn't mean you have to be there by yourself. And it's like the ladder or the hand that can pull you out of that depth. But you gotta go for it. You gotta do it and you gotta put that effort in because sitting in it and wallowing in it and laying in it won't help. It just makes it a lot worse and even harder to come out when you do get help.
For sure. And that's such important advice, that no one should ever face a struggle alone. And having, whether it is the professional help of a therapist, the communal support, friends, family, and having those tools are so integral. And obviously, we're here at Yesh Tikva to offer some of that and are here to offer referrals for therapists, because many times it's more than an individual or a friend can offer, and the need of a professional is so important. So thank
And
you for.
and just to add in also, when one of the reasons I started posting on social media and doing everything I
Mhm.
have been doing now, but because the beginning was infertility. It was posting about the struggle of infertility and then the journey of fatherhood, eventually through IVF. And through that process, saw and heard so many stories of people within my community in Queens at the time also going through it. And I even got messages from my mom's friends saying, "Oh my gosh, we never spoke about this when I was going through fertility and I had miscarriages and I
Mhm.
had, infertility issues. No one ever spoke about this." It's something that is so unfortunately common, and
Right.
it's something that is so private for good reason. But the bad reason is that people don't know that other people are actually feeling similar or have gone through or do go through currently.
Right.
And the more we kind of reach out, talk to people, even if it's one person that you can find and say, "Hey, I'm really struggling. We have infertility issues." And it's not just because we're waiting for the right time, but we've been trying and trying and trying. Um, could be that big difference maker to help someone else open up, as well as find a connector that you're just not alone because you
For
aren't.
sure.
And it can be very empowering to find out that your next door neighbor, your best friend, the person you sit next to in shul, or even the person you go on the train with to work is literally in the same life stage struggle that you are, and it could be such a bonding experience and a powerful thing to know that you're not by yourself.
Definitely. And something just to add to this is that sharing with others doesn't mean that it's an open-ended conversation in which every detail of your experience needs to be shared. That even
100%.
within sharing, you have room for privacy. That in sharing, you're bridging the gap between privacy and secrecy. It doesn't need to be something that is secret, but can always remain something that is private. And in what details you choose to share and whom you confide in, and all those pieces really make a big difference. That you
Mm-hmm.
don't need to go all or nothing,
Yeah,
and that you get to find your middle ground there in how you share, so that you do it in a space where it feels comfortable to you.
I love that.
um, and then I guess one last question to close us off, because I'm looking at the time and don't want to take too much of your time, and so appreciate you being here. Is we think about how there is this different dynamic between how a man experiences loss and how a woman experiences loss. And throughout a fertility journey, there are so many different types of losses that we experience, whether it is the loss of how we intended to grow our families and needing to turn to medicine, and whether that is the loss of a failed cycle, or the loss of a pregnancy, the loss of potential, the loss of hope along this journey. And in that, we have individuals, but then many times we come together as a couple. And how do we bridge that difference in how we're experiencing this loss, so that we can be there for each other while also maintaining our own experiences of loss?
Yeah, and I think that's a good relationship conversation in general of how to have that. But I think I don't know why. While you were talking, I got very emotional just thinking about the journey and all the stuff that people go through. So hopefully, I can give some advice, and hopefully, it helps anyone who might be going through it or has gone through it and wants to repair any pain from the past. But the reality is that you're both struggling in different ways, and this is not about a me versus you. This is an us. I'm in pain, and you're in pain, and it's just about talking to each other for and on each other's wavelengths, right? Because we cannot match the same pain as another person and expect the other person to match us in that same pain. It's not possible. But if I can then reach out to someone, my partner, my wife, or someone's husband, and talk to a place that they are struggling with without it me being a competition. Well, I'm in pain too, so you can't have that space.
Right.
Both spaces can exist, and it's about finding and being creative with taking turns to be in the spotlight of that pain, or to be the leader or front of the band who takes the leading vocals, to be the one who's speaking up and talking first, and while the other person sits in the background. And that power of support is something that will bond you forever. And I say this often, and I did a podcast episode with my wife, one of the first episodes of the Dude Therapist podcast about infertility. And we really talked about the ability of strength that it gave us as a couple, because unfortunately it bonded us together, right?
Yeah.
Which was, it ended up being a fortunate thing that we were then closer to be able to give emotional support. It, again, doesn't have to be a me versus you. It has to be that we are there for each other, and we each have a time. We each have an ability. We each have a process, and that needs to be filled with grace and love and no judgment, because pain can do weird, wonky things to our minds, to our experiences, to our perceptions, and to how we then process other people's joys and happiness. And I remember this, and I have permission to say the story. So for my wife, I remember when we were going through infertility, one of our friends got pregnant with their second kid, and my wife got really upset in the car. Happiness and sadness at the same exact time. And my initial reaction was, how could you have that response? Our friend is having a baby. But if I would have said that, it would have crushed that piece of pain.
Right.
It would have crushed that grief that she deserved to have. So two things can exist at once, and it's very hard sometimes to grapple with that. So it's about being present with our person, being present for the experience they're going through without judgment, but with a lot of love, kindness, and grace, because you understand what that pain is. Not the same, but you get where the pain is coming from. So if you can tap into that source of, I have pain because, oh, she has pain because, then it can create a connector to create a closer space versus feeling so far apart that we're so different. There's no way we can be there for each other. So hopefully that can be something that people can take home. And of course, if anyone has questions, please reach out. I'll do my best to help, but
Amazing.
you know,
Thank you. And I think that a piece of what you're saying is also so relevant to right now in experiencing communal
yeah,
loss and individual loss. It is that exact concept that was shared by Hirsch's parents of there's no winner in this grieving
yeah.
experience and in pain. And if we can all tap into the empathy of understanding, even if our pain and grief isn't identical, and even if it's over different things, if we can tap into the concept of grief causes individuals to feel this pain, then we can use that empathy to support each other individually and on a communal level.
And I think that's a struggle with a lot of the community grief right now is that a lot of people who are not able to sit with other person's grief is because they're a little too stuck in, well, my grief matters more, or my grief is more important, or my grief is above yours because X, Y, and Z reason.
Right.
I think when we get in that headspace, we are doing such a disservice to ourselves to be able to support another person.
Sure.
And we're doing such a disservice of hurting another person to not give them the space they deserve to feel their feelings and have their pain too. Because pain is different, and pain is something that we will not always understand and be able to put ourselves in other people's
For
shoes.
sure.
But if we're able to get close enough to somewhat of an understanding,
Mm-hmm.
and I always say this, it's not always about why, it's about sympathy. I'm not always going to be able to understand why, but I can sympathize with the feeling itself. I might always get to the empathy. The empathy is being able to really get into their mind space and headspace and mindset and really put myself in their shoes. But if I can get a little closer to sympathy, start with sympathy. Can I get the idea of it? Because then that can bridge the gap that if I get the idea, maybe then it can get stronger, that if I keep practicing on sympathy, I might be able to get to empathy. But don't force yourself into empathy if it's not comfortable or not accessible. Empathy is very hard to do sometimes, to be able to put yourself in someone's shoes. So start with sympathy. Can I get the feeling? Can I get the thought? Can I get the mindset? And then once you go from there, then you can give them that grace to appreciate and accept that mindset versus jumping to a place that is total understanding, because that's not always possible.
For sure. And that is a beautiful way to put it, and to give a reachable and accomplishable way of supporting individuals. Thank you. Any last thoughts that you want to leave with the Yesh Tikva community before we
First
end?
of all, you have a beautiful organization that really is something that is helping so many people. So don't be afraid to reach out to an organization like Yesh Tikva. It's there to be used. Be respectful, be kind, but do it. Don't wait. Even if it's just simple questions, things that you think are stupid, they're not stupid. Yesh Tikva is there to give you that support and love. That's what it's there for. So don't wait on an opportunity to get answers. Don't wait on an opportunity to get love and appreciation and acceptance for the struggle that you're going through. And the fact that we're having these conversations is something I could never imagine 10 years ago when, I think this started, I think you've been doing this for 11 years, like 11,
Yeah,
12,
we're starting our 10th
10th
year.
years. So the fact that it's growing and continuing to be conversations is such a beautiful thing and needs to be continued for so many. And hopefully through your efforts and all the work that you do, it gives people that focus that they need and something that's really important for so many.
I mean, thank you so much. And thank you for sharing all these insights and helping our community today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Thanks.